Hey Grant, David from North Alabama. We thought we'd give you an update. And we're standing, or I'm standing here in the same exact field that we were in 2 weeks ago when we did some filming down here to the day. These plants were about knee high. So it's been about 2 weeks and you can see the difference in height. And what's happened is all the plants have all headed out now, and all the stems basically have a seed head on them, but there's no seed in them, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But as you can see, as you look across the field, we've got a much larger height here than we had before. So I think that's important, and it's also important that, you know, the stuff grows real quick. And I got a little nervous when I saw this. I was actually out of town for 5-6 days, and when I got back, everything had just exploded. And when I saw this, I went, oh my gosh, I don't have my seeds yet. All the stems have a seed head on them. So I was really worried about it. And you, after a phone call with you, you kind of talked me off the ledge, but you were right. We don't have any seeds in here yet. It's really all plant material. The important thing is that we're getting height out of this, and the cereal rye is getting to a point to where they're going to start putting on seeds in the seed head. We're in the valley now, and then we have a mountain that goes up probably 500-600 feet in elevation, and that goes up in about less than a third of a mile. So if you did the math on that, we're going up in a third of a mile for every 3 feet that every 1 foot horizontally, we're going up 3 feet. So, but what the difference is that I wanted to bring out, and we'll show you some footage of that later, that our fields on the top are not near as this big. This field here is probably about maybe 4 or 5 acres, maybe a little bigger than that, 6 maybe. And you can tell that the difference between the fields on the top, which are not as big as this, the biggest one up there is maybe 1.5 acres, maybe 2 acres, but most of them 1/2 acre, 1/4 acre, those type sizes. Up on top, the pressure on these plants was much greater than it is down here, and because of the bigger field, the field was able to overcome the pressure that we had. But the difference is that on the fields on the top and the smaller fields, the cereal rye is much lower, and at this same point in time, and it's not as thick. And the reason for that is because of the pressure, and we'll show you some of that. But we're going to have a different planting strategy for the fields that we have on top versus the fields that we have in the bottom. This is one of the fields that we have on top, and I wanted to show you the difference in the height of the cereal rye here on top as compared to what we had in the bottom. And there's a noticeable difference in the height. This is hitting maybe mid-thigh on me, and down there it was way above my waist and to my chest, and some were even higher. So what I wanted to do was show you the difference. And what Grant has asked us to do is on the fields in the top, because they're smaller, the pressure on these fields was much greater. So the plants are not as thick as they are in the bottom because the field couldn't support the pressure. That's I guess not a good thing, because that's one thing, you got too many deer, so which we're trying to fix that. But you can definitely see the difference in what we had in the bottom as opposed to what we have on the top. Now, most of these stems, some of them have the seed head starting to come out. They're not near as advanced as they are in the bottom. So I think the planting date that we do here is going to have to be different than what we do in the valley for obvious reasons. Now, my good buddy Colton at Green Cover Seeds, we talked about this. We talked about it with Grant, and what we decided to do, because this is much thinner, we're going to be planting summer browse pressure release on top, as opposed to in the valley we're going to be planting just plain summer release. But on top, with the summer browse pressure release, we're going to be planting it at a much higher rate. So it calls for 47 pounds. That's what Green Cover Seed calls for. But after talking to Grant, I think we're going to have to up that rate, and Grant suggested at about 100 pounds. And the reason for that, I'm assuming, is because of the pressure that these fields have gotten as compared to the ones in the bottom. So that's our plan for these fields. One other important thing that we need to remember, I mentioned that I was gone for 5 or 6 days out of town, and what happened when I returned is that the spring green up just exploded, and that helped us because that took the pressure off of these fields on top and put it back into those small little young things that are growing now with the spring green up. So the deer that we see in the fields now are nowhere near what they used to be before the spring green up came. So that's a good thing. So we're getting pressure off the field, letting these plants have a chance to come up, although we're still going to have to spend a little more money, I think, to get the cover we need, because we're not going to have the good mat when we roll it. We're not going to have that good mat laid down to suppress the weeds up here as we will down in the valley. So when you look down through here, I can also see a lot more clover down in between the plants, and some other things that were in the blend that we planted in the fall. Now in the valley, we don't have that. There are some, but there's not as much pronounced as we have up here. And of course, the reason for that is the plants are not as thick and the sun was able to get down to the ground. So I'm pleased with what we got. I think I'm excited about taking everybody through the journey as we go through. And hopefully, as time permits, we're gonna take you through our journey from where we started last fall and to where we are now, and on through the planting and through the summer and how the plants respond. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too.